house. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Looks like we are live here. Setting up your webinar for YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Zoom. I'm just going to close this so that we don't hear the recording on top of us. So welcome and good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Vanessa Simpkins. Joining me here is Sarah Manning. She is a medium, a psychic intuitive. What would it be like if you guys could connect to a loved one who's crossed over on the other side? How cool would that be? And so that's what we're talking about here today. Really excited to bring you Sarah's work. I've had the privilege of working with her personally. My name is Vanessa Simpkins from Take Your Power Back Now. Welcome to this radical intimacy series. And wow, you guys are in for a treat. We're going to talk about your psychic gifts, how to tap into them, how to tune into them. What is medium? What's the difference between being medium, psychic, intuitive? We're going to talk about how first of all, I'm so curious to hear. I know a bit of the story already, but like how did you come into these gifts, how you're using them in the world? As always, I'm bringing you just rad experts with rad gifts in the spiritual world. I love bringing visibility to love leaders and spiritual rock stars, warriors here on the planet doing great work. So please do drop a comment question in the chat. If you're joining us live on YouTube, what up YouTube? If you're joining us here on Zoom, use a Q&A. We want to hear from you. So Sarah, like, how did you get into, like, that's pretty wild and extreme, like, holy smokes, you can talk to dead people. What a gift. But how did that start for you?
Sure. Absolutely. It's quite a story. I grew up actually in a very religious cult. That's my background. And it was taught like anything spiritual or energetic or unexplainable was demonized and you should run away from it. And it's scary. And I mentioned one time growing up that I saw somebody that was passed. And unfortunately, I didn't grow up in the nicest of households. So I was beaten into silence and I never said anything ever again. And I was, it was always something to be ashamed of, or I thought I was schizophrenic. So it was something I really, really disconnected from, but at the same time, it never went away. So and then I met my amazing husband, who's always my biggest cheerleader and helper, and someone that has always encouraged me to embrace who I am without apologizing. And I told him while we were still dating, I was like, what would you do or say if I told you I saw dead people? And he was like, well, he wasn't sure how to respond to that. And I figured, well, I better tell him now before we get any more serious. Otherwise, he might run away and that's too heartbreaking. So he just said, I don't have an answer for that, but I think it'd be interesting. And then we left it alone for quite a few years. And then when I hit 30, it's almost like something broke inside of me. For years and years, I always knew that there was a door that was waiting to be opened, but I was scared to see what the other side was. Didn't want to open it, didn't want to embrace it. But then at the same time, I always felt disconnected. I dealt with panic and anxiety without understanding it was panic and anxiety. I knew things about people that I shouldn't know. I knew who died in their family, how they died, when they died. And I just was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so crazy? Or do I just think I'm special when really I'm just human and there's nothing special about me? But my husband and I ended up breaking up because I felt so weird and off that I was like, oh, well, this thing I think I love, there must be something missing. So I kind of put all of my disconnection on my marriage. But then when I moved out, I ended up meeting my teacher, and she was like, oh, you talk to dead people. And if you want to feel whole and complete and present and empowered, you have to embrace that part of yourself unapologetically. And I was like, I'm not a scam artist, lady. I don't talk to dead people. But then I kept going to her classes and I was connecting more and more with intention with people on the other side, and things that there was no body language being able to be read, no facial expressions given so that someone could explain it away. Too many things, very poignant things and very impactful things came through when I was connecting. And I was like, all right, I'm a medium. I actually do talk to dead people. And through that discovery of who I truly was and my talents and gifts or abilities, I ended up being able to get back together with my husband because I was whole again and I wasn't hiding. And through his support and the things that I would share with him, he would go, how did you know that? It's like, because the dead person told me. That's how I knew it. So that's how I started to really embrace it and just go unapologetic about it. And I mean, there are still times where someone will ask me, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a medium. I'm not going to lie about that. You never know how it's going to be received. But the truth is that you just can't hide from it. The more willing you are to share that truth, the more you end up feeling whole and complete and present in any situation you are. And it's something I would never give up on ever, ever anymore.
So many things I love about your share. Recently I've come into my intuition in a very Oh, that's what that was. Oh, wow. Oh, that's what the last 3 years have been. Oh God, that was like really cool now that I see it that way.
Yeah.
And I always say, your purpose is going to squeeze you like a toothpaste. Your life will become very intense until you embrace it,
Yes.
until you embrace that leap of faith of the gift. And I know it can be very, like, from personal experience, like, holy smokes, when I first moved here to Mount Shasta, did I have just wild visions that didn't sleep for like a year.
Right.
And that's what was happening. Okay. Like, I've always been intuitive around business and I still use it in business, but now there's another part of it coming online. So it's great to hear your story about this and even how it's impacted your personal life and how true, when we can embrace this gift, this part of ourselves, when we're not hiding, we become whole. People can see us.
Yeah.
And I know you've been doing this work now for years. You have thousands of people that you've helped. Can you, just share with us here, the audience tuning in, maybe some of the like more poignant stories? And I mean, without saying anybody's names, I know it's confidential, but like, even for you, what were some of the most like, wow, dramatic or like, and it's not like what I'm going to be quiet and let you talk because that I love these signs and stories.
For sure. It's interesting because I know when a reading really impacts me, because literally 5 minutes after I do all my readings over the phone, by the way, all of them. So it doesn't matter where somebody is. And over the phone is nicer because I don't know how old you are. I don't know your cultural background by your face. I don't see body language. I don't see your facial expression. So everything is like, how the hell do you know that? And by the way, I don't have time to Google people or Facebook people. So that's one of the things people ask me, do you do this? I'm like, no. And in fact, if you book a reading with me, don't tell me who you want to connect with. When I know nothing, the reading is better. So when that being said, 5 minutes after a phone call with someone, if you ask me, who did they connect to and what did they say? I'll go, I have no idea. Like, I mean, there's sometimes some things that stick out, but I don't generally remember. So when I do remember a reading, I know that it was huge. One of the biggest stories and one of the ones that helped me be more confident in saying I am a medium without question is quite a few years ago when I first started. I was living in Alberta, traveled to Kelowna, was talking to a lady and her 2 adult daughters. And they wanted to connect to the husband/dad. And the dad was a character and he kept telling me, say Bluebird to my wife. And I was like, no, we're not talking about signs right now. We're just, and I kept ignoring him. But then he was like, I hope it's okay to swear on here. Cause I'm like, fucking say Bluebird to my wife. I was like, okay. So I said to her, I'm like, wow, he's really forceful and he wants me to say Bluebird to you. And she immediately burst into tears and she said, my daughters don't even know this. And she pulled off her wedding ring band, and within the wedding ring band, he had engraved the word Bluebird. And it was their special thing that anytime she was stressed out or anytime he wanted to tell her that he loved her without anybody else understanding, he'd come up and whisper the word bluebird to her. And it was just like, okay, holy crap. So anytime I started kind of, second guessing myself and my abilities, my family would say bluebird to me, and it would be an automatic. There's no way I could have known that. There's no Googleable way I could have known that. There's no facial expression or body language. Another one that sticks out in my mind is I was doing a reading for a gal, and she's really calm on the phone, and it was really good. And all of a sudden I said, I'm pretty sure it was her dad. And her dad was like, will you please tell her to stop shaking her leg? It's driving me crazy. So I said, I don't know what you're doing over there, but are you shaking your left leg? And she said, yeah, I don't normally, but I'm like super nervous. Your dad wants you to stop. It's driving him nuts, and you have to relax. And she just it blew her mind that that's the message that came through, and she relaxed. And as soon as she relaxed, the reading even flowed even better. And her dad, the connection was pretty incredible. There's so many, there's just so many, and it's so hard because I always want to remember them all, but I can't, it just doesn't work that way.
What you're sharing, these signs that you get, people want to, on the other side, send you signs. I had this experience with my dog recently, and this black butterfly story, and kind of having this premonition that he would pass about 6 months ago. And I mean, it was like a wild crack open of these psychic gifts, but they, and then I buried my little dog in the garden, and this little black butterfly was just on his grave the whole time, watched me water the whole garden for 20 minutes. It was profound. There's going to be a tattoo on my arm with, surrender and a butterfly.
Love it.
So they do, animals, people do come through with these signs. Same thing when my father passed as well, butterflies.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this really rad book about the signs. So how awesome that you have this gift. I mean, what about people who, and I know you do a lot of work, you guys can check her out. sarahmanning.com is Sarah's website. I know you do readings. But you also help people tap in and tune into their own spirit, their own intuition and medium psychic gifts. Because there's some people here asking in the chat, hey, how do I grow my gifts? So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Awesome. Just quickly, my website is sarahsmanning.com. Just if anybody looks, I had to put the S. I wanted Sarah Manning, but somebody else had it. Anyways, so I do have two opportunities to work with people at the moment. The first one is embrace your intuition. That is the foundation. You have to be willing to connect to your own intuition and trust it before you're going to trust any mediumship messages. A lot of people ask me, okay, well, how do I know if I'm intuitive or if I'm a medium? These are, the one thing I do also want to share very, very clearly is everything I share with you is based on my truths and what I believe. And other people have different opinions, and that's fine. But this is everything I share and believe and stuff. So I believe that everybody is intuitive. Everybody. And there's no difference between being intuitive and being psychic. It's the same thing, different word. I like intuitive better. It just resonates with me better. Some people like psychic better, but for me, intuitive is what it is, but same thing. So are all intuitives mediums? No, I don't believe so. I think everybody can connect to their own dead people 100%. It's a little different connecting to other people's past loved ones, but I do believe that every true medium is intuitive. They go together hand in hand. So there is a little bit of a difference. How do you know? Intuitive energies and abilities are very much more about the one person you're talking to, or even stepping into a room and you can feel the energy. Even if everybody's really happy, you're like, something feels off. Maybe there was an argument in the room before you got to there or anything. So it's just kind of more about the one person you're talking to. If you are a medium, and let's say, for example, Vanessa, I think on the very first time you and I ever chatted one-on-one like this, it was really, I was trying to concentrate on you, but your grandma kept coming in, and I was just like, oh, please be quiet, just leave me alone, just let me concentrate. And we ended up giving you some things that you knew your grandma was with us, right? Mm-hmm. So mediums generally know or will hear the word grandma, dad, dog, sometimes animals come through, you'll continually hear it in the back of your mind, but not understand why. Or just like your thoughts will continually go to that person while you're talking to your friend. So that's kind of on a like broader scale, how to know the difference between the two. I believe mediums as well deal with a lot more panic and anxiety, because if you think about it, if I died and my husband was grieving uncontrollably and couldn't move forward because I love him so much, and I knew that he was talking to somebody that could hear me, I would do everything I could to make sure that person passed on a message to my husband that I loved him and I was safe and I was okay and we were good. So that overwhelming sense of panic, anxiety, wanting to jump out of your skin. Sometimes when I didn't know what was happening, I would get angry, but it wasn't true anger. It was just panic and needing to run. So mediums deal with a lot of that without understanding what is exactly happening. So once you start learning what's going on, how things are taking place, you can learn to manage it. And I can actually, like, one of the questions I get is, can you turn it off? Nope, you can't turn it off, but you can definitely learn how to manage it through my intuitive gifts and through my intuitive muscle and strength. I've learned to connect to my guides and say, hey, I'm going to the restaurant today. I'd really like to enjoy it. Please keep the dead people at bay. Please keep them going. So you just kind of learn how to like feel it without acknowledging it, right? Trusting your intuition is practice, daily, moment by moment practice. And if you don't, and if you want to learn more about your intuition, you can also go to my website and look at my Embrace Your Intuition program. It's all online and you get access to it right away. And it's under the Empower Yourself tab, and it's just called Embrace Your Intuition. And that is the foundation of working with spirit, understanding the guidance that you're getting on a daily basis. All the signs, for example, Vanessa, you talked about signs. It comes in animals, it comes in songs, things that capture your attention.
My life is full of this.
Yeah. Overheard conversations even can be
walking
a sign.
by and like having this question in my mind, and boom, there's the answer. It was jarring. So sarahsmanning.com is your website where people can find that course, work with you, get readings. A few things I want to share, just in relating, because that's how I use my voice. If there's something I can relate to, I started becoming much more intuitive, psychic when I started doing a lot of shadow work. So the more shadows I started, more cleaning up I did in my emotional body and also in my physical body. Like I did this cleanse and it was like, and just like what you were mentioning, I was like pacing around the house. It was this anxiety of like, oh my gosh, how do I share that with, woo, that's a woo, is that, wow, is that really, holy smokes, whoa, how do I even, is that even meant to be shared with this person? Like, wow, what do I do with this? Holy smokes. And the responses, somebody called me up like the same day, somebody I haven't spoken to in 2 years and was like, hey, yeah, this happened to me. And I was just like, wow. And I was like, how do I turn this off? And I realized it has a lot to do with my food, actually, like depending on what I eat, how much I eat. If I want to just stop everything, like have a burger or something fried, will be like, but then I don't feel good after. So I'm like, okay, let me just, how to manage this? That's a really great question. I'm sure you're asked often.
Yeah.
What do like, so what do you do for people who are learning to manage this, anxiety about it or the fear of it? Because I mean, when my gifts were coming online, I was outright just terrified. Like, I even had a dream recently where I woke up screaming, help. And I was in this scene and I was like 3:00 in the morning. I was like, well, I'm not going back to bed now. Holy smokes, I'm awake. You got my attention, but it was very clearly not a premonition for me. It was like something that had already happened to somebody.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait to see like who that's for. But it was very clear. It was not a premonition for me. It was like a scene that had already happened before. So like, I'm curious, how do you manage this? Like, is it just hey, guides, like leave me alone, I'm going to the restaurant? Is it just a request like that?
So I think one of the biggest things, actually, it's funny that you brought that up because somebody actually just messaged me about this. And in fact, even Sky here talks about things come to me occasionally. I love to learn my gifts, make my gifts stronger. So, and I actually know quite a few people. I'm sorry, Mom, but I'm going to use you as an example. My mom is incredibly intuitive as well, but there's a fear around it, right? We're taught, and we have been taught scam artists, impossible, ridiculous. And in fact, this is kind of a little bit of a side point, but as I was getting ready for our session and making lunch, I've been doing a lot of thinking, especially since working with you. And one of the things that just came through is the world, when religion took over, again, my point of view, they had to make us afraid of death. Otherwise, they couldn't control us in life. And so when things start popping in and you can't get, like, for example, a lot of people will take advice from like yourself, Vanessa, myself, counselors, doctors. They readily take the advice because they're looking at the experts, right? And in their path and in their field. But the truth is, the best experts our spirit. Spirit doesn't just see what's right in front of us or right in front of the doctor's eyes or like face value or look at tests. It looks at the bigger picture and goes, okay, you have to believe this to be able to move forward to this next thing that you want. So bottom line, in strengthening your gifts and your connection, whether you want to use the word gift or connection, it all comes down to trust. I very much liken it to when you very first go to the gym, you're not silly and you don't grab the 50-pound weights expecting to lift them up. You're not going to do it. So what you do is you start out at the 8-pound weights or 5 pounds or whatever, and you slowly start building strength. Trusting and believing in your own intuition comes down to allowing yourself to trust the guidance that you're given. And it's, some people are like, even when I say that, it sounds more complicated than it really is, or that it should be more complicated, but really it's not. It's bottom line. Are you allowing yourself to trust what you hear? I think the other thing that people don't understand is, especially when I'm doing mediumship readings and connecting to a loved one, they think I hear outside of my own head. Like it's like almost like a conversation like you and I are having now. Very rarely is it like that. And it's very rarely not in my own voice. The words I hear and the visions I get and the thoughts I get are generally in my own voice, but I've learned how to filter out what's ego versus what is actually a message. And again, comes down to trust and just going, okay, I heard that. And my ego is telling me, or my fear, however you want to word it, fear or ego, same thing. So you can either go, okay, my fear is telling me that's crazy. Who am I to think I can have this? Who am I to believe that I have that connection? Or you can go, okay, that thought came out of
nowhere. Yeah.
Out of nowhere. You have to remember, women especially, our minds are constantly going, go, 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 go. All the list of things that we have to do. And if all of a sudden you get like all of it, a thought of your dad coming in and you're just like, oh, wow, that's really nice. I promise you that's because your dad is standing with you right there, right next to you in that moment. He's asking you to think of him because he's right there. So it comes down to trusting. And again, working, when I work with my clients, again, it's like, but how do I trust? How do I trust? Well, how do you trust someone that you just that you just met? Takes time. It's not an automatic thing. It'd be ridiculous to say, oh yeah, just start trusting right this second. It takes time. And the more you tune in and the more you trust, the more you're given, because the universe, your guides, your loved ones, they know that you're catching the difference and you're catching the intuitive frequencies or the messages that they're sending you. And they're going, hey, you understand and you're trusting me. So I'm going to give you more. I'm going to give you more. Because I think the other part that people don't realize is like, you think I'm tired at the end of a reading, which by the way, it's exhausting, but amazing. It's also exhausting for them to give us messages. Not that they don't want to, they do, but you have to think about it. The reason why we don't see them is they're vibrating at a much higher frequency. So they have to slow things down. And then they, let's use the butterfly. Your sweet puppy had to go to the butterfly and energetically convince it to hang out, to stay, to control. It's not the butterfly. It's just the energy of your puppy, your dog, getting the butterfly to just hang out and live and stay there in that moment. And that takes a lot from them, but they love doing it and all that good stuff, right?
There's so much here. And I'm going to share a little story. And
Sure.
I also figured out how the chat works. So if you guys have questions, if you guys are on here live with us, there's a bunch of people on here live with Zoom. Go ahead and drop any questions for Sarah in the chat. That function now works. So, I remember when my father passed away, this is like 14 years ago now. And this is about, I'm relating to, how things come to you. And it will be out of the blue for me, and I will get a really big emotional feeling at the same time. And I remember, being in my friend's car talking about my father. He was this, artist, and I was visiting. My sister and I were going to travel together for the first time ever. I was 28 years old at the time. I'm 43 now. And my sister was coming to Hawaii, and we were going to travel around for a couple of months. On the trip of a lifetime. And, my father was an artist. He really inspired, this kind of freedom, travel, live your gifts, free lifestyle. And I was telling my friend about it in the car, and I got so emotional. I started crying, and he's like, take my phone, call your dad. And so I called my dad, and he was like, hey kid, I love that you guys are traveling. You guys are, all my friends are their kids are in, university, and you guys are traveling the world like these rock stars. You haven't even been to university, and so proud of you. And it was just a beautiful conversation. And he's like, if you want to stay in my studio when you come back to Canada. I was like, yeah, right, Dad. As if I'm going to stay in your studio, but that was the last conversation I had with my father. And he passed maybe a couple of weeks after that. And we ended up staying in his studio when he had passed. He came back to deal with the funeral and everything. But that always stayed with me, this the thought of somebody and then the emotional response. I'm like, okay, that's somebody coming to, to connect. And I'm in the baby stages here, learning about, maybe not the baby stages. I've been using my intuitive gifts in business. It's very easy for me, to pop out copy, names, marketing plans, strategies, for people. But there's this new chapter opening up, that's really, it's been alarming. So I love how you said to trust, and then you will be given more with that.
Yeah.
Any questions for Sarah? Go ahead and pop them in the chat. I know we have some people asking specific questions about health.
I don't. Okay. So a lot, actually, that's very common. I wasn't surprised when I saw that. A lot of people do ask me health questions. And what I tell people is I'm not a doctor and I'm not a health intuitive. Because when it comes to health, it's very personal and very unique. And I think because I'm not a professional in that field, I'm not comfortable commenting. That being said, if ever I do get a message from spirit about, hey, this person needs to go get this checked out, it's not to make you scared or anything like that. And I will always honor what I'm given, always pass it on. But I always think if health is coming up for you, that's your intuition telling you need to look at your lifestyle. You need to look at how food is affecting you. I don't believe that anything is coming into your mind without a reason. Again, your mind is how spirit's connecting to, or talking to you. Spirit, intuition, your higher self, guides, source, loved ones, however you want to label it. If it keeps coming up, that is your intuition telling you, or your psychic abilities, you have to pay attention to this. It's super important. Some people will be like, well, if I don't pay attention, will it go away, or will I suffer punishment? And again, I go, oh, religion. So wonderful. And listen, religion, if it works for you, great. Doesn't work for me. And to me, there is a huge difference between a religion and spirituality. Religion, to me, has too many rules and too much rigidity about it. And I guess I would say more the Christian religions, because I don't know enough about the other ones. But spirituality is what feels good to you. Does this food make you feel good? Great. Eat it. Are you craving this food, or are you craving something that it makes you feel? And if you know that it's not really the food, it's an emotional reaction, dig at that. Don't dig at the food, right? So that health question is a common one, but it's one I don't generally answer. I just say, if it's coming up for you, you need to investigate. You need to start listening to your body and how it's reacting and everything, right? So again, do what makes you feel good. I think that's the bottom line of what it is, because the more you feel good, the more you elevate your vibration and the more connected you'll actually feel. And then it comes down to, so it's really interesting. So always while I'm talking, I know I'm a talker, but you have to remember, because I can't disconnect because it's downloading. Sometimes my conversations just kind of go all over the place because I'm like, oh, somebody else needs to hear this and somebody else needs to hear that. So I love that. And again, just pay attention to it. And the more you just allow yourself to be, and allow yourself to accept that that's what you need to talk about or what you need to do, that's where you should go with it. So you and I are both love talking, Vanessa.
Yeah, I know. We have lots of conversations. Easy. There is a question here about, I'm happy you touched on, spirituality, and religion, because some people struggle with that. I grew up in a religious family. How'd you get over that spirit is okay, but not evil? I fight with that daily as to what's wrong or what's right.
Okay, perfect. I really had to look at it and be like, okay, this is what I was taught was right. But there are so many different religions out there. Who's really to say what is right? And why can't it be okay that I accept my intuition, accept the fact that I talk to dead people? Why is that not okay when so many other people say it is?
Well,
So
because I think everybody has the capacity. I believe everybody has a capacity for, being intuitive or
yes.
psychic or medium, or like, we all have these gifts. Everyone has different gifts, so please continue. I just want to.
Yeah, no worries. That's an excellent point, Vanessa. We can all swim, but not everybody are Olympic or competitive swimmers. Same thing. Everybody can connect, but everybody has what they need to do with it, right? So absolutely, 100%. So I ultimately had to decide, was I happier when I was connecting to spirit? Absolutely. I had an amazing, successful career in the business world. I was an executive assistant, had massive perks, pension, everything. But as I started doing readings, my husband said to me and said, you are so much happier when you are working for spirit. So what do you want to do, Sarah? Do you want to continue with your professional career or business career? Or do you want to work and do something that you love? And I was like, you're right. I really do love this. That's where I wanted to do. I had to give myself permission to be happy. Screw what anybody else thought. So ultimately, I had to keep myself in check and go, is this belief that's coming forward one that I was given and taught, or is it one that I truly can embrace and accept? And the more I chose what I wanted to believe and what I wanted to embrace, the happier I got. Again, more empowered, more confident, more knew who I was, knew how to be in control of my own happiness. Does that mean that I still just like anything that comes up, I go, meh, whatever? Nope. But it's a daily consistent decision. Am I going to follow what makes me feel good? Or am I going to follow something else that was given to me as being told that it's what
I think this is really the major block that a lot of people have. Let's just blanket entrepreneurs,
Yes.
in general. I've been working with spiritual entrepreneurs for 14 years, coming out of the woo-woo closet. I'm spiritual, I'm psychic, I'm this, I'm that, woo, is a huge, talk about breaking through your visibility blocks.
Yep.
Because of the identity the beliefs, right? The judgment,
Yeah.
the who are you, who am I? I've been working with, women in this space for a long time, and it's a massive thing that holds them back from really not only embracing their gifts, but owning them and being able to share them,
Yeah.
so that other people can really benefit them. And so I love what you say about, is this an identity that was created by a belief that somebody gave me?
Yeah.
Or is this actually a belief, that is serving my feeling?
Yeah.
And again, the universe is going to squeeze you with intensity like a freaking toothpaste until you really, out you
Yeah.
get with it. So I just love that you shared that. And we have some questions here in the chat. So
Sure.
I'm going to tune over there,
Sure.
and people are asking, someone's dad passed away, and she said, I was just starting a job. I was going to give him a kiss on his forehead. He passed away later that afternoon. Is this experience a way of telling me I'm on a path to discover my intuition?
I have to, okay. I'm just going to quickly read it again, if you don't mind, just so, can you say that once more, Vanessa?
I'll read the full thing. My dad
Okay.
passed in 2013. I was just starting a new job. He and my mom had the flu, so I stayed away to keep healthy. The day I finally visited, he was in his usual position, asleep on the couch, golf going on in the background. I went to give him a kiss in his head, and a voice told me not to kiss him. I was conflicted and did not. He passed away that afternoon peacefully while I was there. Hadn't had that experience again, and I'm aware of, would this be a way of telling me to stay on the path to discover my intuition?
That's an interesting question. I'm kind of stumped a little bit by it. Like, there's so much going there on, like, part of me, by the way, is super honest and stuff. Like I said, like, I'm a little stumped by that. So here's what I would tell you. The feeling that you got to not kiss your dad is, there's two things I would tell you there. First of all, probably, it's like, okay, stay away from him, be healthy, but also, would your dad want you to be the one that discovered he'd passed or needed help? Probably not. That would have been a really difficult memory to have held. So my feeling around that intuitively is very much like your dad's higher self was probably just telling you, no, just be okay, be distant. It's his time to go. That's something else that I think people don't understand is, I believe we pick the day we come into the world and around the time that we're going to leave. I really do believe that. So if your dad's life plan had been he was going to pass this day, he just was like, no, it's okay. You don't need to kiss me. Just enjoy my presence and just enjoy myself there. Right. I hope that makes sense. Okay, there we go. There's it. Haven't had that experience again. So haven't had that experience again. It could be that, I know I think there's more to this. Like, every part of me is like, there is more, Jane, there's more to this question, I think, than you had space to write and everything. I haven't had this experience again that I'm aware of telling me to stay on the path. No problem that it's wordy. Honestly, always trust your intuition. Always trust your path to discovery. There's a reason for it. And Vanessa, you touched on this, where the universe like squeezes you out of the toothpaste. The thing that I think people forget is, let's view life. So we talk about the game of life, right? A lot of people use that term when we talk about our life here. But when you think of a video game, and there's multiple levels to the video game, and you reach the next level, you don't go backwards and play the same level that you just did. You go to the next level knowing it'll be more challenging, more experience needed. So to me, the universe isn't necessarily forcing us into something else. It's just your vibration is so strong that you're bringing more into your life. And it's saying, you are actually ready for this. If you weren't ready for this, there's no way in hell you would be having it come to you. Yeah. So, that it's just, with your starting a new job and all of that, the universe was just saying, and just have some space and be okay with that. I do have to say, there is it's almost like Jane, I hope it's okay. Yeah, I hope it's okay, Jane, that I'm using your name. But I would tell you, like, even as I'm trying to talk to you, there's so much blocked right here. There's so much still that you don't want to acknowledge or that you don't want to put into words because it's too painful for you in regards to that situation. Let go of the shame, let go of the doubt, forgive yourself, forgive how things happen, because that way, when you release it, you're going to be breathing and you're going to feel present and you're going to feel way more empowered the way your dad would have wanted to, because your dad, part of the joys of talking to a medium is all of a sudden dead people will show up. And your dad was one of your biggest cheerleaders. And it's interesting because I keep wanting to also say he also helped you see things from a different perspective. Maybe not, and it wasn't always his opinion, but he had a way of seeing someone else's perspective and another point of view that was empowering and helpful for you. Trust that. And it's funny because I keep wanting to tell you, you might not know that you're experiencing more or that connection, but you are. It's not like, and I keep wanting to say, when you hear your dad's laugh in your mind, that's his confirmation that he's connecting with you. And I hope that all makes sense. Yeah, she says yes. So that's great.
Also someone here in the chat saying, you know, when you do learn to trust this and start, you know, using your gifts, owning your gifts, you become a lot happier. And
Yes.
like you said, you know, your husband was like, do you want to do this corporate thing or would you rather do what makes you happy? And I think that's, you know, really we're all here to experience our purpose, to use our gifts and then share them with other people. I think that's why there's, you know, 8 billion people on the planet. And I also know, through experience that there's this identity thing happening again, you know, like, you know, trust your intuition. Anytime I didn't trust my intuition, holy smokes, did I ever get a whomper of a, you know, oh man, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's really, I think it's such an incredible gift to, you know, for all facets of life. And definitely on the happiness plane. So how can people find, we could talk for ages here. I love this conversation. I even just love watching you do this. But how can people find out more about you? Do you have some links to share with the audience if people want to get in touch for a reading or, you know, work with you on further developing their intuitive gifts?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook. It's I will share here in the comments the links and everything, but it's Sarah Manning. Just honestly look for the pink hair, the profile that has the pink hair. It's pretty recognizable. But it would be so it's obviously facebook.com/ and then XO Sarah S. Manning again. Same as my website, sarahsmanning.com. Sarah does have an H at the end of it. Just some people ask me how you do it and stuff. I am on Instagram for official Sarah Manning. No S in that one. And, you know, email info@sarahsmanning.com. I do intuitive readings. I do half an hour intuitive readings, depending on what you want. It's totally fine to reach out to me and let me know what you're looking for. You can also book yourself through my website. I also do mediumship readings. Those are only private ones right now on the phone. And again, on the phone, because when I try to do readings like this on the computer, spirit loves energy. So it always glitches no matter what I do. And it's frustrating for myself and my client. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, sorry. I also do, again, the Embrace Your Intuition course, which is the foundation course, chakras, learning how to ground, learning how to cleanse, learning how to pass on messages, learning the difference between your ego and what you're receiving and what you should listen to and pay attention to. That is all online and available to do at your own pace, and you get lifetime access to it. So if I add anything to it, you get that for free as well. The Embrace Your Intuition course isn't free, but all the details are on it. I also help those who have their, connected to spirit and have the foundation, and then want to go to the next level with mediumship skills. I connect one-on-one with all of my coaching clients who are developing their own mediumship abilities and connection to be able to give messages to clients. That's the purpose of the mediumship coaching program, is to develop your own business and through developing your own mediumship abilities and all that good stuff. So
awesome. So I just want to make sure that all the links here in the chat for you guys, and your email again is info@Sarah with an H,
Manning.com.
Manning.com. Awesome.
Yeah.
Sauce.
Thank you.
Holy smokes. Have I so enjoyed this conversation? And, we have a couple more minutes. If anybody has any other specific questions, drop them in the chat.
I'm Vanessa, I'm going to interrupt you here for a second. I love what you said. I ignored my intuition and kind of felt like I got walloped on the other side and stuff. And actually that's a really common thing to say as well. And one thing that some people are afraid of is making the wrong choice. Like, well, what do I listen to and everything like that. I always tell people there's no wrong made decision. There's no such thing as a wrong decision. It is simply different outcomes. Because no matter what decision you make, there's a lesson to be learned. And that allows you to release the fear of making a mistake. I actually don't believe in mistakes. I just believe in different results, different lessons, strengthening through error. There's two quotes that I always think of. One is by Iyanla Vanzant, and her message, and this will help anybody struggling with religion versus spirituality, or it's okay versus not, or whatever. But her quote is, "A truth is only that which you believe it to be." And that gives you freedom to decide what's going to work for you, what isn't, not needing someone else's approval and going, I choose to believe this, and that's fine. My mom and I are very, very close, and yet we have disagreements all the time, but it's because I'm okay with believing what I believe, and she's okay believing what she believes. She is one of my biggest cheerleaders, don't get me wrong, but we still have different views because we're different people. Nobody's views will always 100% line up with yours, and that's okay. The other quote that I love is actually from Will Smith, and he was talking about it's about failure, and if you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough. Again, embrace failure. There's nothing wrong with it. The only time failure is bad is if it stops you and makes you stand still.
I love this. Failure is a lesson. Success is a lesson. Apply every time, we make decisions. This is really how we wield our power as conscious creators, by making decisions. Decide, commit, expand. That's the theory for change. You got to, make a decision, commit to it, and then and only then the expansion happens. Yeah. And, you can look at any track to success as the process of trial and error. And you're right. You only fail if you stop, because failure is a lesson. Success is a lesson applied. And that goes, recently I've been, just looking at like social media, and I'm like, oh, this is how this whole Reels thing works. And I got this. Okay, let me putz around with that. Oh, I can see how this all led to, a deeper understanding of, some of the new technology for visibility. So it's not a failure unless you let it stop you. It's a fantastic message. And I'm with you on, opinions are like a-holes and everyone's got one. So it's just like, whose opinion are you listening to?
Absolutely. I just want quickly on a side note too, is I think one of the biggest things that I like to share with people is I have dedicated my life to spirit and being of service and listening to my intuition. That doesn't mean I do it every minute of every day. There are times where I look back and go, I knew that I should have listened. But instead of saying I should have, I just go, well, that's okay. I know for next time. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I share that with people is I think they think, one of the things learned teaching and with the experience that I've had with students is they're so afraid of getting it wrong or not listening every moment of every day. Spirit wants you to remember you have free will. They will never encroach on it. If you don't ask them for help, they will not help you. And that's not because you have to submit to them. That's crap. It's because they don't want to infringe on your free will. Biggest thing.
I really like how you mentioned that. I'm reading this book and it's all about signs. And I'm like, oh, this is how I live my life. And the idea was like to ask for signs from, hey, if this is right and true, if this is a good decision, or help me, hey, someone who's passed, well, I'll often go to like my dad or my grandmother, you know, um, and ask for a very specific sign.
Yeah.
So like I'll ask my grandmother, like, hey, cherries, like bring, because she used to have this cherry tree. And I bought this house because there's a big cherry tree in the backyard. I thought about her. It's so interesting. And she used to have me climb up the cherry tree when I was a kid. And I was like, I'm so afraid. And then just she couldn't get me down from the cherry tree. I was like having so much fun in there. So when I ask for signs, I ask like, hey, I ask her, like, bring me cherries, like bring me a sign. And it'll be, it might sound like crazy, but, I'll see cherry emojis. I will, I'll pick up a book. Oh, look, the cherry wrapper for the popsicle or whatever it is, it will come. So to ask for a very specific sign.
And then be open to however it comes, right? Like I love how you said the cherry wrapper, the cherry emoji, like it's not necessarily cherry that you can physically touch, right? So I love that. Can I ask or answer one more question, Vanessa? Okay. I love this. I have Sarah, do you have to ask for help directly every day from spirit or simply in the moment? It depends. I think, for me, I'm open because I've worked with spirit one-on-one for so long. I'm very open to spirit on daily guidance. Daily guidance will come to you no matter what, if you ask or not, that will come. If there is a specific question or situation that you're in, or let's say you want to ask your boss for a raise and you're nervous about like your mouth working, you can say, hey, guides, by the way, big difference between guides and loved ones, but, and angels. So you can go, hey, I always talk with my guides. I love them so much. So I talk to them and I'm like, for example, Ezekiel. So before I jumped on here, it's like, Ezekiel, make my mouth work today and make me relaxed and just let things flow. Right. So he did. He's hanging out with me. And in fact, he's usually right here. And he's just been kind of like putting my hand on my shoulder whenever I'm kind of like, he goes, just relax. So you can ask them specifically for guidance on anything. If you're buying a house, asking for a raise, asking for anything in particular, but then you will receive guidance throughout the day as well. So there are 2 levels there and everything. So again, you'll receive guidance throughout the day, but if there's a specific thing, ask them for help on that. Absolutely. But you can also talk to your guides. There's different guides too. When I lived in Canada, one of my favorite things to do was before I went to Costco, I'd be like, okay, runner guides, go find me the best parking spot at Costco because it's rainy today and I really don't want to get wet. I always found a parking spot right by the door. It's always great when you allow them to lead you. So yeah, absolutely. And they can help you in so much.
I can relate to this, asking. There was one day I was texting somebody and I was like, why am I texting? Why am I write it, send it. I was like, why? Write it, send it. I'm like, why? And then boom, it landed. I was like, oh my God. And then of course, like the little voice is like, is this just some random thought? I was like, and I was, the anxiety. And then maybe a day or 2 later, the emotional, answer came in. I was like, okay, I trust that. I'm just going to put that aside now. Don't have to deal with it anymore. Got my answer.
Yep.
Super, super inspiring. I love this conversation. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in here today. I know we'll have a bunch of questions and comments on the YouTube channel as well. Our brains are kind of here inside Zoom land. But I want to encourage everybody to visit Sarah's website, reach out, connect with her on any of the social sites, on Facebook, on Instagram, shoot her an email. If you do want to connect with a loved one on the other side. I've personally experienced her work. She's awesome. I think you guys get a good feel for her enthusiasm and her joy and her passion and her love for this work. And I'm so happy that you've embraced it. And
thank you. We do.
That you're sharing it, because it's like, what confirmation, for people that have lost somebody, what a beautiful gift. So
thank you for having me and letting me share. It's been amazing.
Yeah, rock star. And thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Vanessa Simpkins from Take Your Power Back Now. Thanks for tuning in here for the Radical Intimacy series, where we cover everything that's like radically intimate about spirituality, health, love, consciousness, all the things, business. And we'll see you guys at the next perfect time. Big hugs.
Bye. Mwah. Bye, guys.